What is up, guys? It is I, the Rambling Collector, back here with another book review for all of you, or I should say another anime light novel. And today I will be discussing a fairly new one that has popped up recently over the course of this year. And today we will be discussing Demon Lord 2099 by Daigo Murasaki. Let's get into it. So now I know that a lot of you guys are thinking just from the title, as well as from the cover art here, that this sounds very familiar to another anime and light novel that we know of. And I will say that, yes, it has something like that, but at the same time it is something completely different. So, our main story revolves around the Demon Lord, known as Veltol, whom in the prologue of the book is essentially defeated by the main hero of his time, known as Graham. So Graham and Veltol have it out, Graham defeats Veltol, and essentially Veltol falls into a slumber, or a coma-like state, for 500 years. But when he awakens, thanks to the help of his loyal second-in-command and one of his most loyal servants, Makina, he is essentially revived in the year 2099 in the city-state of Shinjuku. Now, I like how this story immediately passes it off as no, he did not retreat to another world, he fell into a coma after being defeated by the hero. Which that alone has a very unique premise. Like, what do you do to make this guy who seems so overpowered, how do we get him to 2099? And having him be defeated is a unique premise compared to Sadao Mao from Devil's a Part-Timer who simply retreated. But no. So after he awakens, he's essentially introduced to this whole new world as somehow Veltol's world and the world of modern-day Earth had merged together to create this massive, complex world of a mix of magic and technology. And honestly, that alone is fascinating, because I don't think I've ever heard of any sort of series combining magic with technology. It's a very unique literary premise that I have never heard of, but I'm honestly excited to see more of if there are. If you guys know any others similar to this, please let me know. But back to the main plot. So as of this point, nobody remembers Veltol, and the only ones who are alive of all the immortals that he was with at the time are two of his subordinates, Makina and Marcus. Now, the difference between these two is that while Makina has essentially waited for Veltol's return, Marcus, on the other hand, has done nothing like that. During the time of Veltol's absence, he has essentially risen to power as a major CEO of a Magitech company, and it is revealed that during his whole entire time of serving Veltol, he has harbored a deep hatred and resentment for the Demon Lord. And it is revealed by this after Veltol, in his weakened state, tries to confront Marcus in his own office, where it is revealed that Marcus, that dark elf vampiric bastard, what does he do with him? He casts Veltol out of his office after stabbing him multiple times with blood swords. So during this time, Veltol was extremely weak, and after realizing that Makina has been waiting for him all this time, he finds it in himself to try to lower his pride and try to find a better way to live in this new society that he knows nothing about. Whilst along the way, he encounters a hacker girl named Takahashi. And like I said, it's very fascinating to see this whole complex combination of fantasy and technologic mixed into one universe. Like, you have humans running around with ogres, orcs, goblins, and all the likes. Hell, even the immortals. So it's a very fascinating concept. However, due to a certain technology piece called a familia, which allows people to access the ether within the city, as well as also grants you more employment. However, Marcus, being the one who designed this unique piece of technology, has rendered it unusable for Veltol. So because of this, Veltol is viewed as unreliable for a vast majority of the jobs within this society of Shinjuku. However, he does manage to find one particular way to earn money and following, in order to regain his strength due to worship of him. And that is, and I kid you not, by becoming a live streamer. Like, seriously, I actually was both flabbergasted and honestly just laughing when I heard that. I mean, think about this for a second. A dude who proclaims himself as a demon lord is essentially live streaming himself playing video games over the entire social media. Like, honestly, the premise of that alone was enough to keep me hooked and keep me going. But more than that, I found myself actually poring over this book. Like, it took me at most 2 days to finish this 200-page novel. And that is because at one point I stayed up till like half the night, just wanting to read more and see how it all ended. And honestly, Marcus definitely puts himself down as a very hateful villain. Because it's more than just him being spiteful at Veltol, but he is cruel beyond measure. So, throughout this process, we keep on learning the mystery of how these immortals are disappearing, right? Like, Veltol himself is completely clueless as to how exactly all these immortal and super powerful beings have disappeared, most of them being in his court. However, we come to find out about something called the Immortal Furnace. So what we find out is that Shinjuku itself lies on 2 major ether lines, but they are not strong enough to power the entire city. So Marcus, that devious bastard, crafted something called the Immortal Furnace, where essentially the main premise of it is sacrificing immortals to flames and using their power to strengthen the ether connection across the entire city. So literally he is throwing people in to be burned alive and using their magical power to fuel an entire city. That alone is sick. Which really makes Marcus a more despisable villain. Like, it makes him very despicable and sick with just the lengths that he goes to keep his power. And you'll find that a great majority of them are actually members of Veltol's court, further signifying the fact that Marcus just despises Veltol. So honestly, Veltol himself is a very fun character to read. Like, I honestly found myself just enjoying every second with the guy, because he's so cocky and so sure of himself. Like, his pride is so immense, and yet at the same time, it's well earned considering how strong he is. But watching him at first struggle to adapt to this new world that he lives in, with his whole plans of world domination, of course, but seeing how he has to now come to terms with not only the fact that a large amount of people do not remember him, since it has been 500 years since he was present, but at the same time we see him struggling with new technologies. We see him having to deal with the fact that most of his friends, or at least most of his court of loyal followers, is now gone. One of his most closest confidants has betrayed him, and the only one who's left is the loyal woman who waited for him for 500 years, having to sacrifice her pride just to wait for him. And I'll say this right now, Machina is a fantastic character, as well as the main love interest of Veltol, as later on it is shown. But the fact that she remained so loyal to wait for the guy for 500 years, despite the changing times, never once giving up hope that he would return, now that is just honestly sweet though. Which makes the reunion all the sweeter. And frankly, at the end, when Veltol finally confesses that he actually does love Machina, it actually made me smile. I'm not even gonna lie. Not to mention, like I say again, it's fascinating to hear the specifics and the techniques of this world. How it's that huge combination of magic and technology, which I can't even put into words the sheer detail that Daigo put into describing the world, of how everything taps into these ether lines of magic, and how this whole thing is literally a combination of Veltol's world and Earth merging together despite multiple wars and everything else that went on throughout the history of this whole thing. I'm actually very excited to read book 2 of the series, especially if it keeps going for a long-winded one. But if it does end up wrapping up in a short amount of time, I'll just be content with what I got. Because I'm actually excited to see more, because Veltol is fun, Makina is a really good character, and honestly Takahashi, the hacker, is just a lot of fun, because she uses a lot of modern slang, which is absolutely funny, as well as a bit cringy, not gonna lie. But at the same time, it just feels like a genuine friendship between the two of Veltol and Takahashi. Not to mention, she more than pulls her weight throughout the book, which you will see for yourself if you decide to pick this up, which I do highly recommend you do so. If you want something that's like far-flung future, or if you want a fish out of water type story, or if you just want to see a man who's so overpowered, just wrecking the hell out of everything, then this one is definitely one for you. But let's get on with the score, shall we? So all in all, I'm willing to give a solid score of 10 out of 10 for Demon Lord 2099 Book 1. And if you guys want a similar reverse isekai like this, then definitely go ahead and check out The Devil is a Part-Timer, which you will notice that they are very similar, but they are also very different. Because while one is a devil king who chooses to work at McDonald's, the other one is a demon lord who becomes a freaking live streamer. So all in all, I do recommend picking up Demon Lord 2099. Don't miss out or judge it as a clone of Devil as a Part-Timer. It is most certainly not. It has a similar premise, but it is executed in a very different way. Anyways, you guys, if you watched this to the end, feel free to let me know what your thoughts were in the comments section down below. And if you have any other light novel suggestions, feel free to let me know as well in the comments. And thank you once again for listening to this crazy man's ramblings. I hope you all have an awesome day, and this is Rambling Collector, signing off.